Chapter 9. Kaboom. Thorn. The evening light was just beginning to fade as Captain Thorn led a wobbly Duchess Lillian Astor to her new quarters in the Taymore colony. Thorn was rather impressed with how well Lillian was holding her alcohol, considering the sheer volume of ale she'd just consumed. She was unsteady, but something about it seemed exaggerated. It made Thorn vaguely suspect she was wobbling on purpose so she could use it as an excuse to lean against his shoulder. Just a little further. The living quarters he had picked out for Lady Astor were almost in sight. All he had to do was get her inside, and he could escape. "Hey, Thorn!" a voice sounded from behind him. "Shoot!" Thorn turned to see Laura. Her red hair was ruffled and messy from a long day of work managing the army mess hall, which she had recently taken over. She had an apron slung over one shoulder and a smudge of white paste on the side of one cheek. Her eyes flicked quizzically over Lillian before fastening onto Thorn. "Captain, I am so glad you're back. I need to talk to you about the Invicti. They are really getting out of hand. One of them questioned me yesterday. I was so mad. They seem to think the crew of the Bountiful Gilligan released all the slaves when the ship crashed. They are convinced some of them escaped and have come to the Taymore colony to hide. They are screening the passengers of every airship that leaves the colony and have also started randomly interrogating innocent civilians. It is a blatant violation of our right to privacy." Lillian interrupted with a loud hiccup. "Whoa, temper, temper. What is you all riled up, Red Girl?" Laura shot Thorn a puzzled look. Who is this?" "Sorry, Laura, this is Duchess Lillian Astor of Paracera. Her family has a sizable investment in the Firestone mine." Thorn leaned in the direction he had been leading Lillian, hoping Laura would pick up on his hint and put the conversation on hold until he had disposed of the noble. It didn't work. Laura's mind was too tied up in her own concerns. "There has to be something we can do about them," she continued. "It isn't like they are in their own country after all. Abriston citizens should get priority." Lady Astor had been staring at Laura with a drunken sheen on her face. She now interrupted in a petulant tone. "Why won't you let us go? We have important matters to attend to. Wait." Her eyes widened. "You aren't his girlfriend, are you?" Laura looked confused. "What are you talking about?" "No, I'm not his girlfriend. We just met a few days ago." Lady Astor scrutinized Laura's face. That's good. Finders keepers, so don't think about making any funny moves." Thorn felt his cheeks heat as Laura stared at them in confusion. He could only imagine the wild rumors that would start circulating if he stuck around Lady Astor much longer while she was in this state. He gave a desperate glance around the alley, frantically searching for a way to end the conversation. To his relief, he noticed Braylon approaching with a rather sheepish expression. This was just the distraction he needed in order to escape. "Hi, Braylon. How have things been in the colony? Did you have something you were going to ask Laura?" Captain Thorn tilted his head toward her eagerly. Braylon shifted awkwardly and folded his hands together as if he were praying. "I need to talk to Laura." "What is it?" Laura flicked a gaze toward her roommate. "So, Laura, don't be mad," Braylon started. Laura immediately looked suspicious and turned to him with one eyebrow raised. "What is it, Braylon?" Braylon averted his eyes. "I blew up the apartment." What?" Laura gasped. "What are you talking about? Everything was fine this morning. How is that even possible?" "I was making some explosive devices." "Explosive devices? In our apartment? Could you please explain what you are trying to say in a different way, because there is no way you are saying what I think you're saying." Laura's tone was pained. Captain Thorn used the opportunity to slowly slip Lillian away, while Laura continued to interrogate Braylon. Soon, Lady Astor's new quarters came into view, and Thorn let out a massive sigh of relief. "Here you are." He did not have to pretend to be cheerful. "Great. I will see you in the morning. Let me know if you need anything." "What? Aren't you coming inside?" Lillian's voice lowered to a whisper. "Hey, that girl isn't actually your girlfriend, is she?" Thorn's voice cracked. No, she isn't. Anyway, I really should be going. It is very late and you are very drunk and—" He pulled away in panic as Lillian tried to reach forward to kiss him. What was with this woman? "I better be going. See you tomorrow." Lillian waved gaily at Thorne as he ran away down the street.
Laura. Laura struggled to maintain her composure as she surveyed the chaotic apartment bedroom. Burn marks marred the walls and floor. The bed frame had been blown into several large chunks, and the linens lay in tatters. She was exhausted from a long day at the mess hall, and this was the last thing she wanted to see. She took a long, deep breath and let it out slowly. In her most reasonable adult tone, she asked Braylon, "Tell me again, what were you doing with explosives in the bedroom? Where did you get the materials for this anyway?" She rubbed her face. "I traded with one of the engineers that just got back from the Firestone mine. He had all kinds of great stuff. Anyway, if you pack gunpowder in a metal can or tube with a little Firestone, add some good wadding to keep everything in place, and top it off with a wick, you can achieve quite a good explosion." Laura spoke slowly. "So, you were making bombs? In the apartment?" Braylon nodded with a wide smile, which quickly faded as he looked at Laura's face. "And you thought this was a good thing to do in our apartment. Why?" She struggled to avoid sounding like she was about to cry. "It should have been fine," Braylon insisted. "These explosives are perfectly safe until you light them off." "Then, how did the bomb explode?" Braylon raised a shoulder sheepishly. "A candle was knocked over." Laura plopped her face in her hands and groaned. "It could have been a lot worse." Braylon was quick to continue. "It is a lucky thing I threw the explosive under the bed. Otherwise, it could easily have blown up everything in the room." "Ugh!" Laura recoiled at the mental image his words conjured. "I don't think you're getting my point, Braylon. I shouldn't have to say this, but I am going to anyway. I don't want you to do anything with explosives in our apartment ever again. Do you think you can stick to that?" Braylon sagged with disappointment. "But where will I go to build my bombs?" "Literally anywhere else." Laura struggled to control her tone. "Oh my gods. Why couldn't they have given me a normal roommate that plays loud music and leaves a mess and does not build explosives in the bedroom? Why? Why? Has my life gone completely insane?" She sat down on the floor and covered her face. Braylon watched her awkwardly and seemed to search his mind for a way to make her feel better. Suddenly, his face brightened. "The good news is that I was able to make half a dozen explosives that were completely undamaged." She let out a strangled laugh that was half a sob. "You big goof! What am I going to do with you?" She looked up and wiped her eyes. "What are we going to do about the bed frame, though?" They would need to get the bed frame fixed, and probably part of the floor. The people from the engineering department might be good at this sort of thing. Maybe Mr. and Mrs. Belvedere knew someone who would be willing to help? She gave a decisive nod. Out loud, she said, "I'll ask the Belvederes tomorrow morning if they know someone who can help us out with this. We can get this taken care of. Everything will be fine." Braylon seemed relieved, but not completely convinced Laura was done being angry. In a final attempt to smooth things over, he added, "Hey, if you want, I could let you set one off?" Laura stared up at Braylon in despair. He rapidly continued, "If you have never used explosives before, I can teach you how. You should at least give it a try. Blowing things up is the single best feeling in the world." She sighed. "I give up." Laura gazed in fascination at the streets of the Catkin Quarter. She had rushed through breakfast prep at the mess hall so that she could go visit Mr. and Mrs. Belvedere during the mid-morning lull. Laura had never been to a Catkin village before, and the experience fascinated her. The buildings appeared to be made from boxes of various shapes and sizes. Laura stared at one building that appeared to be made out of an old apple crate. Many of the buildings had sunny rooftop balconies, some of which were already dotted with the occasional sunbather. In the center of the village was a giant branching tree surrounded by a picket fence. A plaque on the fence announced, "Beech Tree Public Park. Please be respectful of other patrons when using the tree. The maximum allowed stay is 3 sequential nights. Kittens under the age of 6 months must be accompanied by an adult. No lifeguard on duty. Backward climbing is an advanced skill. Only experienced climbers should exceed their jumping distance. Laura looked up the height of the tree and noticed it was dotted with little hammocks that swayed gently in the breeze. The sound of children laughing greeted her as she rounded the bend to the Belvedere's street. A group of neighborhood kids that included Timmy and Tira were happily playing together. One human boy, wearing a wreath of dandelions on his head, was perched on Tira's shoulders. He looked languidly down at the other children with an air of royalty. Several more children were bowing in a circle around the boy and calling out in adoration, "Oh, Nebo! Oh, Nebo! Great sky god!" Laura choked back a laugh as she paused to watch their silly antics. They seemed to be acting out a story from ancient mythology. One little Quinty boy was pointedly looking away from the fuss with his hands on his hips. "I am Hades. I refuse to worship the sky god. I am a cooler god than you, and besides that, I am a shadow lord." The human boy was nonplussed by this response. He waved a hand as he responded, "Who cares if you're a shadow? When Hades turned into a shadow, it made him go insane. How cool can a god be if he's crazy?" The two boys exchanged a few more bouts of theatrical insults. Meanwhile, a scruffy little rabbitkin girl gazed at Hades in undisguised adoration. Draping her arms around the Quinty boy, she professed, "I am Saphira. Since I am your wife, you have to love me more than anyone." She nuzzled his forehead. Laura smirked. The girl clearly had a crush on the Quinty boy and was using the game as an excuse to get close to him. The boy was oblivious to this and played along with her for the sake of staying in character. Nebo hopped down from Tira's shoulders. "Since I am the great sky god and head of all the gods, I must have a sacrifice from my worshippers." He grabbed Timmy and dragged him along as he climbed back up to Tira's shoulders. "Wait!" Timmy protested. "Why am I the sacrifice?" "Easy," the other boy replied. "You are the best at landing on your feet." He dangled Timmy upside down from the top of Tira's head. "Oh!" Timmy dropped toward the ground. Tira lunged forward to catch the catkin boy, her face clouded with worry. All right. Enough of this." Nebo hopped down and pried Saphira away from Hades. "Time to move on with the story?" Saphira flicked her hair dramatically. "My love, save me." Hades dropped to his knees in feigned despair at Tira's feet as Nebo struggled to drag Saphira upward. Unfortunately, Saphira was a head taller than Timmy and a good deal heavier. Nebo grunted and turned to look at a party-colored catkin girl. "Hey, give me a hand. Won't you?" The catkin girl looked up at him with crossed eyes. "I can't help you with that. I'm Ares, the goddess of chaos. I'm locked in the Pandorum." She indicated a small package for fruit-flavored cereal she was sitting in. "That doesn't happen until later in the story," the boy exclaimed, his face red with effort. He got up to Tira's waist before giving up. "I guess I'll just have to drop you off the mountain from here." No, Saphira protested. "You have to throw me down from the top of Mount Talish. That is how my love is supposed to be eternally immortalized." "Mount Talish?" Laura scrunched her forehead and then realized, "Oh, Mount Talatia." She clapped a hand over her face. It was the mountain where the sky god had supposedly lived, but the girl couldn't pronounce it because of her lisp. Nebo ignored Saphira's protestations and pushed her down from Tira's waist. The sight made Laura flinch, and for a moment she worried the girl might be hurt. Tira beat her to it and was already bending down, checking whether the girl was okay. Saphira sprawled dramatically in the dirt, fluttering her eyelashes. "Oh, Hades, I love you," she whispered, before closing her eyes and sticking out her tongue to symbolize her death. Upon seeing his lover's demise, Hades let out a scream of rage and chased after Nebo. The boys ran around the streets several times before acting out the sky god's death and Hades' second descent into madness and transformation into the devourer of gods. Ouch! Stop biting me, Nebo shrieked. Just because you are Hades doesn't mean you can bite me for real. Laura shook her head and walked over to break up the boys. After getting the children settled down, she knocked on the Belvedere's front door. The dwelling was of a rather creative design. It appeared to be constructed from repurposed packing crates. An elaborate pulley system with a pail and counterweight hung from one of the second-floor windows. However, currently all the windows were tightly boarded shut. Mrs. Belvedere grinned broadly upon seeing Laura. "Ah, come in. Come in. So nice of you to visit us," she said as she led Laura inside. The interior of the house was equally unique. The kitchen contained a single table made from a giant wooden spool, while a variety of smaller packing containers served as chairs. A pot of porridge sat cooking on the stove. Some sort of gizmo was attached to the side and was mechanically stirring the contents with a large spoon. "So, how are Tira and Timmy doing? I see Tira seems to have been accepted by the local kids." Laura tilted her head toward the sound of the children playing outside. "Those two are inseparable," Mrs. Belvedere beamed. "Tira is like the sibling Timmy never had, and a small jungle gym, all in one." "Ah, that's good to hear," Laura collected herself. "So, I suppose I should say the reason for my visit. Do you happen to know someone in the engineering department that is good at woodwork repairs? Specifically, do you know someone who would know how to repair a bed frame?" "Sure. My husband is quite talented with woodwork, if I do say so myself." "Is this for you, Laura?" Mrs. Belvedere asked. "Yes, actually. There was an incident in my apartment recently. Do you suppose you could ask Mr. Belvedere to stop by and help us out with a damaged bed frame?" "Of course. We are both so grateful for what you did in helping to bring Timmy home to us. We are happy to help in any way we can." Just then, Tyra stuck her head in the door with Timmy on one shoulder. "Mommy, I'm hungry. Is breakfast ready yet?" Timmy widened his eyes pitifully. "Not quite yet, honey. Give it about another 5 minutes. You two go wash up while you wait." Mrs. Belvedere turned to Laura. "Have you eaten yet? If not, you are welcome to join us." "I'm good," Laura said quickly. "I just finished serving breakfast at the mess hall." Tyra ducked obediently into the house, her head nearly brushing the ceiling in the process. She was tall when compared to a human of her age, and outright dwarfed the little catkins. After the two children disappeared down the hallway, Mrs. Belvedere cocked her head in Tyra's direction. "I get so worried about her, working all the way out on the outer wall. It doesn't seem safe." Her face looked genuinely nervous. "It's just that she has been through so much already. Wouldn't it be better to keep her inside the city where it is safe? She is so young. I can't imagine sending Timmy to the outer wall." Laura glanced in the direction of the hall subconsciously. "Tira is fine, Mrs. Belvedere. She is much larger than Timmy. You should have seen her in the grosswing nest. I think she can take care of herself. It just seems like it would be so scary for a child." Mrs. Belvedere scrunched her apron. Patting the other woman's shoulder, Laura tried to reassure her. "Listen, everything will be fine. We wouldn't send her to the outer wall if we didn't think she would be safe." Mrs. Belvedere sighed. After a pause, Laura asked, "By the way, have you happened to notice anyone paying too much attention to Tyra? What I mean is, does she tend to stand out compared to the other people in the Catkin quarter?" Mrs. Belvedere considered the question thoughtfully. "Well, she is a bit on the tall side, which we love, of course. It is very helpful to have someone who can reach the tops of things without having to climb." "Right. I'm sure. I seem to be bumping into the Invicti a lot recently. Have they bothered you at all?" The Catkin woman tensed at this. "No, they haven't talked to us so far." She sighed and pressed her palms to her eyes. "If I'm being honest, they have had my tail hairs on end lately. The Firestone mine isn't just important to the Abristan government, it's the cornerstone of our economy on this terra. Now that the mine has been closed, a lot of folks are having a rough time of it. This is just the sort of situation the Invicti love to swoop in and take advantage of. Of course, we are lucky that both my husband and I work for the military outpost, she continued. But a lot of people I know are not as fortunate as I am. Being such a small colony, we have to depend on imports. Without the income from the mine, those are starting to dry up. A lot of my friends, the parents of the children on this block, are in a hard place because of it. Laura gave a sober nod. The defense system on this terra was unquestionably small, doubtless built that way to save costs. However, the small size also limited the land that could be used to grow food. They were just a little pocket of civilization, trying to cling to existence in a sea of bloodthirsty beasts. She hoped the military base could come up with a solution soon. After chatting with Mrs. Belvedere for a while longer, she turned to leave. On her way to the door, she spotted a glaringly conspicuous tail, twitching from behind a packing grate that was serving as a bookcase. She cleared her throat. "I can see you there, Timmy. If you are planning to sneak a pounce at me, you really should make sure your butt is covered first." Timmy peeked up from behind the bookcase, his eyes wild with mischief. "See you around." Laura waved to Mrs. Belvedere and hurried off down the street.
Thank you for listening to A Taymore Deception. Tune in every Wednesday for new chapters.